Hello everybody, and welcome back to Factoring Trinomials. So let's remember these trinomials that we are factoring, we're saying a equals 1, and every time we say that, that means that this leading coefficient for your quadratic term for the x squared is going to be 1, or essentially there's going to be no coefficient there, no number. So at a quick glance we can look at all of these guys that we're about to factor, and we see they just all start with x squared. That's what that means. Okay, so we did a whole lesson on the x squareds, the factoring trinomials rather, where we have only pluses. So let's kind of remember what we did there. So we said every time we do this, we are going to start with our two sets of parentheses. I'm in, and x squared we found because we multiplied x times x. Good. Then what we have to do is multiply to get 36, and we're going to add to get 20. So then we're saying, okay, so now for our numbers 36, if it's not coming to you, because 36, my go-tos are 6 times 6 and 4 times 9. And neither of those is going to give me 20, so let's write out all the possibilities for numbers that multiply to give us 36. That's 1 times 36. And what you can always do also, if they're not coming to you, is you can take 36 and you can divide as you go, divide by 2. So it's also going to be 2 times 18. 36 divided by 3. 3 times 12. Divided by 4. 4 times 9. Whoops, can't even see that at the end of my calculator. 4 times 9, and of course we know 6 times 6. Okay. So we want to add to 20. There are our numbers right there, plus 2, plus 18. And then we can always double check this, by the way. Factoring you can always check, because remember we can always multiply these two guys, and it should bring us back to our original. X times x is x squared. X times 18, 18x, 2 times x, and 2 times 18 is that 36 in the center here. We do have like terms, and we're going to add them, and that's how you get your 20x. And there's our final answer. So yes, we do know that this is the correct factorization of that trinomial. Okay, sliding up. Let's see these next guys. Okay, so this time what we're doing is we're changing signs. We've only done them with plus plus. Now we're going to try minus plus, plus minus, and all the way at the bottom, minus minus. Let's see what the difference is. Okay, well, I'm going to start the same way as I did before. I'm going to set myself up because I feel like I'm starting. I'm going to take whatever that variable is, split it, xx. Next, I still want to multiply to get 20. But here's the thing. We're thinking of two numbers that multiply to give us a positive 20. Well, the two ways that you can multiply two numbers and get a positive are, of course, multiplying positive numbers, two positive numbers, or you can multiply two negative numbers. A negative times a negative would give you a positive. And when we see what we did up here, we combined the numbers, and that's how we got this middle term. If you combine two negative numbers, you will get, hopefully, a negative 12, but you will definitely get a negative number. So we want to multiply to 20, and this plus is telling us that we are going to add to 12, but we know that our signs are both going to be negative. So we have to multiply to get a positive 20 and combine to get a negative number. Okay, possibilities for 20. 1 and 20, 2 and 10, 4 and 5, and I think that covers all of them. So now, because they are both negative numbers, when you combine, you are adding. You're essentially adding the numbers, and if we want to get 12, this is our pair of numbers 2 and 10, minus 2 and minus 10. This guy over here. If you want, you feel comfortable with this, you think you know what to do, pause, and then you could check and see if you got the right answer. But I'm going to jump in. That's how I start every factoring problem. Fingers crossed, I'm going to hope that it works. multiply to get 14. Well, when I multiply to get 14, that's 1 and 14 and 2 and 7, and those are really my only options. I'm multiplying to get a positive number, but when I combine them, I get a negative number, and the only choice there is a negative times a negative. The only way to get a positive number is either positive times the positive, like we saw in that first example, or a negative times the negative. So now when we have the same signs, still find the sum, so we want to add those numbers to get 9, 2, and 7. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to multiply to 14, add to 9. I kind of work from right to left. That's how I teach myself, and that's what I think in my head as I do these guys. Number 3. For this guy here, okay, set myself up, because I'm going to get it right. X in the beginning of each, okay. Start at the end. I am multiplying to 10. I'm going to multiply to get 10. Actually, I'm multiplying to get a negative 10. And the way that we multiply two numbers to get a negative number is that you have to multiply a positive times a negative. So I know I need both signs here. So I'm going to multiply to get 10, which is 1 and 10 are 2 and 5. But I have to get 3. Now, since I have one of each sign, what I'm actually doing, and that minus there helps me, I'm actually going to subtract. I'm going to subtract and get 3. Well, this pair of numbers will subtract and give me 3. But the thing is now I'm like, okay, so these are my two numbers. I'm going to have the 2 and the 5. But one of them gets a positive sign, one of them gets a negative sign. So now I'm going to say, okay, well, when I combine them, and now I use the word combine, when I combine them, I have to get a positive 3, which means that the 5 has to be the positive number, and the 2 has to be the negative number. Negative 2 and positive 5, that's what's going to give us a positive 3. The larger number has to get the positive sign if our sum is positive. So the 5 goes with the plus, and the minus goes with the 2. By the way, you can also write your factors like this. The order doesn't matter, but it does matter which factor gets the minus sign. The minus has to go with the 2, and the plus has to go with the 5. If you think you're feeling comfortable here, you can pause and try B. Okay, so we're multiplying to get 30, subtract to get 7. That's what I say in my head every time. I don't say it in my head, I'll say it out loud. Multiply to get 30, subtract to get 7. So let's see what those possibilities are. If you have that pair and it just comes to you, write it in. It's totally fine. Multiplying to get 30, 2 and 15, 3 and 10 and 5, lots of choices, 5 and 6. So I want to subtract and get 7. Subtract and get 7. There it is. And subtract these numbers, and I'll get 7. So now I know my numbers are 3 and 10. But remember, you're multiplying to get a negative. So we do have one of each sign. And it's a positive 7. So the positive goes with the larger number, plus 10 minus 3. Number 4. For this guy right here, 2 sets of parentheses. X goes in the beginning of each. So now I'm going to multiply to get 30 and subtract and get 7. Deja vu. Didn't we just kind of do that one? Well, let's see. 4a and 3b are very similar. The difference is this sign. So our answer will look similar, but there is going to be a little bit of a difference. Well, let's see what this one is. So we multiply to get negative 30. So I know I'm going to have one of each sign, positive and a negative. Multiply to get 30. I'm going to subtract and get 7. Well, I know my numbers are 10 and 3 because that's what I had last time. But this time I want a negative 7. When I combine these, one of each sign, I'm going to get a negative 7. So if I combine and my answer is negative, the larger number has to be the negative, the smaller number is the positive, plus gets the 3, and the minus gets the 10. B, For this guy over here, set yourself up, 2 sets of parentheses, x in the beginning of each. We are multiplying to get a -7. We're multiplying to get a negative, one of each sign. And we are multiplying to get 7. Well, not a whole lot of choices there, right? It's just 1 and 7. So I know my numbers are 1 and 7, but it matters now because I have signs. I am multiplying to 7, subtracting to get 6. Yeah, if I subtract these numbers, I will get 6. And it has to be a -6. So the negative goes with the larger number, plus with the smaller number, 1 and 7. Remember, you can always, even if you're guessing, you can check and we can distribute. That's your x squared. Positive times a negative, it's -7x. Positive times a positive, plus 1x. And positive times a negative, -7. Combine in here. And there's your minus 6x minus 7. Okay, so I squeezed this last little one in down here because I probably would have done this on the board if we were in school. But let's see, I'm gonna set myself up. 2 sets of parentheses, x in the beginning of each. Okay, well here's my 7. I'm gonna multiply to get 7. Well, I already know there's only one way to get 7, and that's 1 times 7. So I wanna multiply to get 7, add to get 3. Well, this is the only way to multiply to get 7. And when I add those numbers, I'm getting 8, not 3. So when you cannot find a pair of numbers for your factors that fits the criteria it has to fit, then you cannot factor it, and we call it prime. Just like we have prime regular numbers like 17 and 7 and 23. You can't find two numbers other than one in itself to multiply to give you 17. This is 17. So just like this one, we cannot break it down and find two numbers that will multiply to give us this answer. Only one in itself, and that means that that is prime. Okay, more often than not, we will be able to find factors for our trinomials. But remember, once in a while, we may get a prime answer. If you can't find those numbers, then it's prime.